Joining us now is the CEO of a company called Pebble. His name is John Shively. And this company is focused, I believe, on copper. At least that's what we're talking about in terms of this interview, the need for copper. And we're talking about the opposition from the Trump administration on this, which is really kind of surprising. We see Donald Trump saying we need to be completely self-sufficient in the United States. And yet, as we've seen with rare earth, and with many other minerals, if we don't have the fundamental building blocks, whether we're talking about copper or aluminum or rare earth, we're not going to be able to build anything because China is going to, if they've got a monopoly on this, they're going to make it difficult for people domestically to manufacture with that. So we're going to talk about the issues, the general opposition to mining that is faced in the United States with Mr. Shively. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, David.
Lay out for us a little bit where we stand in terms of copper. Do we have a lot of copper in the United States? How are we in terms of being able to produce and manufacture that and get it online, even if we have it in the ground? Where do we stand on that?
Well, I think we have plenty of copper in this country. Pebble is the largest undeveloped copper project in the world, but there's a large resolution in Arizona. There's a large copper deposit up in the northern Minnesota and others. So we have the copper we need if we can develop it. But I think that the thing that the people need to understand is the role that the Chinese are currently playing in mineral development and particularly mineral processing. There's a study that was done by S&P Global recently that says that by 2040 we'll have a 10 million ton deficit worldwide of copper.
Wow.
And the Chinese have seen this coming for some time. So, they have a whole different way of doing things. If they want a copper processing plant, they build it. If they need more power to run that plant, they build it.
Yeah.
They have no processing or no environmental process, no litigation, none of that. And this country, it takes an average of 29 years from when you find a deposit to when you actually can be mining it. We're the second worst in the world.
Wow. That's regulatory hang up with that you're talking about, because as you point out in the materials you sent to me, Beijing is doing it in 5 years. So, it takes a while to actually build something and to exploit it. The rest of that time, going between 5 years and 29 years, the rest of that is in terms of investigation and approval processes and that type of thing, right?
And don't forget litigation, which can add anywhere from 3 to 10 years.
Now, you pointed out in the op-ed piece that you did that was published on Fox that Donald Trump Jr. Opposed this early on. He was concerned about fishing and that sport fishing, I think it was. Tell us a little bit about the site that's there in Alaska. This is one that we're talking about.
Yeah, actually, I didn't point it out. Fox News conveniently pointed it out for me. Well, first of all, I would talk about that. I think, he has a different view now, maybe because of the nation's and his dad's emphasis on getting critical minerals so that we can be independent of those. But we sit in a sensitive area. We've always understood that. It's in the Bristol Bay area. That's the largest sockeye fishery in the world. And we've always known that we needed to be especially concerned about the environment. And so we went through a permitting process back starting in 2017. We got an environmental impact statement that said we could do this project without harming the fish. And then politics got involved, and the Corps of Engineers turned down our permit. We appealed that decision and won our appeal. That got remanded back to the Corps of Engineers, but by then the Biden administration had come in. They did nothing with it while they let the EPA come up with a decision to basic veto not only the whole project, but close off mining at a 220,000 acre area in Alaska of land that's owned by the state of Alaska. and was specifically gotten by the state of Alaska because they knew there was some mineral potential in that area.
And of course, you have been involved in the state of Alaska in terms of what was your position there in terms of resources?
I was Commissioner of Natural Resources for about 6 years for the state.
Okay, all right. And so the state wanted to do this, but the federal government is coming in and saying that they can't do that. And you know, we kind of I jumped ahead a little bit with some of this, but you know, we talk about the bigger picture here. You pointed out in your stats that right now we import about half of the copper that we use. I think it's 45% or something like that. If this were to come online, that would drop us to by about 15 points. It'd take us down to so we go from about a half of the copper that we use being imported to about a third. And it's a huge amount of copper that is there. And of course, why is copper so important? Well, that gets in the way of all their agendas. I mean, the Trump administration is not pushing like the Biden administration did for electrical vehicles, but everything that you electrify, that's pretty much going to be copper wiring. And so if they want to have their AI data centers that they're looking down the road, they're not going to have the material to build that unless they can get it from China. And so this is kind of it's kind of interesting when you look at it. He moves very quickly on these different agendas. And, you know, if that is his agenda, he hasn't really thought it through what it's going to take to make this happen in the same way that we saw with rare earth. The rare earths are not rare. It's just rare for anybody to be set up to process them. And yet they didn't wait until they had processing plants before they essentially cut that off with the trade wars and the tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, China has a whole different system than we do. I mean, they basically control the whole supply chain from getting the concentrate either from their own country or from other countries, processing that into metal, and then putting the metal into whether it's, you know, they're what now is a huge EV industry, refrigerators, solar panels, all of that. And when they want to do stuff, they do it. They currently do process about half the world's copper. In this country, we have plenty of copper. I mean, if you look at us, if you look at Resolution in Arizona, if you look at Twin Metals up in Minnesota, you know, the copper is there, but there's a piece of it that requires, I think, a lot of thought and a lot of investment, and that is the processing. So mining is basically, in my mind, 3 steps. You blow up the rock. You take the rock with the ore in it, you process into something called concentrate. So like for us, the ore would have a 1% mineralization, the concentrate would have about 26, and then you take the concentrate and make the metal. Well, we haven't built a new metal copper processing place in this country in probably 3 or 4 decades.
Wow.
Meanwhile, China's been building them left and right.
Yeah, it's kind of like coal plants. You know, we don't want to use the coal anymore. We had, I remember one point in time, we were told that after the OPEC oil embargo, we were told, and I saved the magazines because I thought it was ludicrous at the time even. They said, oh, we're going to be out of oil and gas by the mid-1980s. But we got 666 years of coal left. So what's the first thing they banned? Coal, you know.
Well, and of course, we've been at, quote, peak oil several times since then. And right now, I don't think we've ever reached peak oil because technology keeps getting better in that decision.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you look at mining and the investment, I mean, you know, we've spent $1 billion already. Resolution in Arizona has spent $2 billion. Neither one of us have gotten an ounce of ore out of the ground to process. I mean,
wow.
And eventually, if these big projects like Pebble, Resolution, Twin Metals can't get going, then people will stop investing in mining in the U.S. And then to get back to processing a little bit, the other problem that we have, and it's happened with rare earths, is we start to build something up and then the Chinese undercut in price. So right now, for instance, for processing copper, China is paying people to take their concentrate and process it, which is basically unheard of. But because they can then take the metal and make all this other stuff, they don't care about that. Whereas if we start processing plants, they sometimes associated with mining companies usually, but you need to make a profit, and those are multi-billion dollar investments. And so how the country faces that issue of getting processing, because that's the only way we become independent with metals, is to be able to process it here.
Mm-hmm.
We mine it here and process it here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they've got all these grandiose plans, for artificial intelligence, which a lot of those plans I don't agree with because the government's going to be using them for surveillance and other things like that concern me a great deal. But they've got these big plans for AI, and yet how are you going to manufacture that? How are you going to build the data centers if we can't manufacture even the copper wire and things like that? They don't really think these things through. Everybody thinks, well, it's going to be this nice, clean software environment, but there is a physical world out there that has to make that virtual world happen, and people don't really think that through. When you talk about the processing versus the mining, are you doing the processing as well as the mining, or is that how does that operate with your company?
Well, we'll do the first two steps, so for sure. So we'll blow up the rock and we'll take that rock and make it into a concentrate. We are looking at a way to process it in Alaska. And we've got consultants investigating that right now. We think there's a different technology. Usually the processing has been what's called smelting, which is high heat and has air quality issues. There's a processing called hydrometallurgy that uses liquids and pressure basically to get the metal to come out of the concentrate. So we would like to do that because we think it's important.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what their concerns are, because when I've looked at the coal industry, for example, burning coal, we can make coal power plants that are very clean. You can spend extra money to have scrubbers and things like that. But they got to the point where they labeled it as something that's dirty. We don't even want to think about that. We're not even going to try to clean that process up in any way, shape, or form. We've seen it with cars that you can take car exhaust and you can spend extra money to clean it up. And you can actually get those emissions down to essentially zero. But again, they, drive the nail into the ground and say, no, there will be no internal combustion engines. Talk to us a little bit about the process with this, and what would you say to people to assuage their concerns about the environment and how it's going to impact the fishing stuff? What did your studies show, and how do you operate with that?
Well, the environmental impact statement basically showed that we can do the process, do the mining, make the concentrate, store the tailings, which is the big issue. It's the sort of waste that's left over from the processing processing concentrate, that we can do that. We have made some major design changes from what have been traditional impoundment storage facilities, water processing, and things like that, because the environment's so sensitive out there. And, I was approached in 2008 to take the job as CEO. I've been in and out once or twice, in, out, and back in as CEO. But when I started, I told the two companies that were the owner companies that I didn't know at the time whether we could do this project environmentally sensitive. I had been involved in another major mining project up north of the Arctic Circle that was on native Alaska indigenous lands, where we got mining company to come in and develop one of the largest zinc lead mines in the country, which changed the whole economics of that region because there were not economic opportunities. So,
and that's part of it. When we talk about jobs, everybody says, well, we don't want the service jobs, we want the manufacturing jobs. Well, the manufacturing jobs come with some issues that you have to address. One of the things that China does, as you said, they just do whatever the government wishes. They don't really care about any pollution issues. We do. That is something that we do want to do something about, and yet there are solutions that can be had to that. It isn't like we either have manufacturing and pollution everywhere, or we don't have any manufacturing. That's not the trade-off. The trade-off, as I've seen over and over again, I don't know about your particular industry, I haven't looked at it, but the trade-off that I've seen over and over again is a trade-off in terms of maybe it costs us a little bit more because we've got to go through some extra steps, but it can be done in a clean way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a true environmentalist, you'd want to develop in the U.S.
Hmm.
because we have some of the highest standards. I mean, there are other countries that are about the same, but we're right at the top of the environmental standards.
Hmm.
Um, but a couple things. One, these things are money-raising opportunities for the environmentalists. You know, uh, they can only raise money by being negative. They cannot raise money by saying, "Oh yeah, I think this mine is environmentally okay." But they have to be opposed to it. And the other thing is, they're not held to any standards of truth. If they're a pharmaceutical company, they'd be sued all the time because they do not tell the truth.
Hmm.
And it's a problem. If I were in the Chinese government, I'd be sitting over there sort of chuckling about, gee, this is the way the U.S. is doing it. They'll never catch up with us.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, it's kind of the sort of thing that we saw with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They plays fast and loose with the truth, and they only raise money if they come up with problems. So, for them, they're gonna fund the Ku Klux Klan. So they got a problem that's that's out there. But I get your point. That's exactly what is going on with it. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do to mitigate. You said that things have changed somewhat from the way it used to be done. I know
Yeah.
when they were talking about the one that is the resolution one that's down in Arizona, people were talking about how it was going to create a gigantic crater. And they were concerned about that because it was in the middle of a national park or something, as well as an area that the Apaches had a large attachment to as well. So how has that changed?
Well, I mean, that is an issue with mining. I mean,
Hmm.
generally there is you're going to end up with a large crater. In the case of Resolution, they're an underground mine, but you get subsidence when you take the ore out from underneath it. We will start with an open pit mine. We'll probably ultimately, I mean, we've got 70 to 100 years of resource that we know about now.
Hmm.
We would end up with also a large crater, which would ultimately become a lake.
Yeah, that's what I was
Uh,
going to say. That's typically what happens to these. It's kind of like when you got a landfill. I know in Virginia Beach, where we have some relatives, they have this Mount Trashmore or something, which they came up with. You got to do something with the trash. I mean, it is unfortunately it's a necessity. So once they got the landfill really large, they put grass over it and all the rest of that, and they've now got a large park out there with a mountain in an area where they typically wouldn't have a mountain before. So you're talking about
right.
having it be a large lake that would be their recreational lake eventually.
Yeah. So, and our tailings impoundment facility this is a technical thing that and it's probably we don't need to spend the time on,
Hmm.
but is a different kind of design that both protects it from failing and also protects it from liquefying, which is one of the reasons that tailings impoundment facilities fail. And then, as I said, we have a very sophisticated water treatment plant.
Hmm.
But, I do see that, some things are changing in the country for the better in this regard. So I don't want to be all negative. First of all, there is now is a recognition that we are going to need these metals. And, whether it's for the AI, one of the things people forget about is defense. I
Hmm.
mean, jets, submarines, battleships, air carriers, I mean, tons and tons of copper and also rhenium, which we have. So people forget about that. But there was a sort of a positive thing last week in Washington when the Senate uh, confirmed a resolution coming out of the House under something called the Congressional Review Act that revoked a 220,000 acre land set aside under the Biden administration that would have prevented the Twin Metals mine in northern Minnesota. And so that was voted, it was very close, 50-49. But in that kind of vote, it only requires a majority. You don't have to get to 60. And so that'll go to the president's desk. And so I think people are beginning to understand this, but the opposition is huge and well organized. And There are people who think that the opposition has connections to China. I have never seen that, although we did have one instance with us where there was, it looked like interference from the Chinese in cooperation with um, with the environmental movement.
Mm.
So, um,
Well,
who
it's
knows?
interesting.
But I do, as I said earlier, I do know they're very happy with how long it takes us to get a major.
Yeah, well, that's the key. And, this is a long term project. That's another thing that works against you, I think. Americans don't think long term. We want immediate gratification. If this is something that is addressing a problem that's going to be years down the road or decades down the road, we can't really be bothered with that. So
Yeah,
we
and
don't
that's
really think about it.
I mean, that's been, I think a problem also for investment in mining because it is difficult to get going. As I said earlier,
Hmm.
29 years average.
Yeah.
And, um, you know, everything gets litigated.
Hmm.
Uh, that generally adds, 3 to 10 years, as I said. And then constructing a mine of the size of Pebble is a 3 to 4 year and, $6 to $8 billion investment.
Mm.
you know.
Hmm.
So you go out 29 years, you spend, as we have and Resolution have, billions of dollars before you even start, and then you got to construct. And yeah, it's not something that happens overnight. And people that are used to getting electricity by hitting a switch and think that's where it comes from do not understand what it takes.
Yeah, we used to. I used to work with a group that was based on energy and was essentially opposing a lot of the climate change stuff. And they would go around and talk to people that have a public meeting or something and say, what's your favorite source of energy? And said it never failed. Somebody said electricity. It's like, that's not the source. That's the product that's produced. How do we generate that? Well, I don't know. Just all I know is I go to the grocery store and I buy this meat in plastic packages. And that's what I eat. That type of thing. So there's a real disconnect in terms of production of anything, whether you're talking about food or energy or material in this country, and there's nothing that is absolutely perfect, I think. So that's really the issue. The devil's in the details, and we have a lot of absolutism, I think, that comes from these different groups that we've talked about, and they don't want to consider any solutions. They run into an obstacle or they see something that is on a downside, and they just want to shut it down. Their reflex is to shut it down completely and preemptively. And so I think that we need to take a closer look at some of these things and see if there's a problem. We don't want to take the approach that the Chinese take, where we don't care about anything. That's one of the things that they have done. They don't care about pollution. They don't clean up their coal plants. They build a ton of them, and they just run them cheap and dirty. We don't necessarily want to do that, but there's a lot of money. The wealth of this country is really going to come from manufacturing, if you will. And so there is money in that. They can pay to clean some of these things up in a way that we can still proceed forward with it, I think.
Well, and really, it's cheaper to get it right in the
Hmm.
beginning.
Hmm.
I mean, particularly in this country. So, yeah, you can get it wrong, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to get it wrong,
That's right.
which is a good thing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the way it should be.
that's right.
Um,
So,
well,
as it stands right now, you are at what point in your stage? I mean, you've had some preliminary approvals, I think, at some stage, but then they took it back, and it's very political in terms of the pendulum swinging back and forth. That's not true only of your project. That is true of pretty much everything in terms of manufacturing. So, where does it stand right now?
well, we're in litigation. So
Mm-hmm.
we sued the EPA under the Biden administration when they basically vetoed us.
Mm-hmm.
We thought the Trump administration might want to withdraw the veto. They decided not to, so they have supported the EPA veto, which I, I'm not totally surprised about it. It has some ramifications for them in the future because the way EPA used that veto can be used against a lot of mining and energy projects that the Trump administration would like. So defending the use of the veto in a way that I think way exceeds EPA's authority, I think was sort of a mistake for them. But for us, I think it's a good thing. I think we will win that litigation. We have the state of Alaska on our side because we are on state land. So
Mm-hmm.
it's EPA taking away a, close to $1 trillion asset from the state. We have two indigenous organizations also suing on our behalf. So anyway, so the final briefs have been filed in that lawsuit. And I think we'll win, which will be a good thing for us. There are still oral arguments, which will be held on June 25th. After that, the judge will have everything she needs to make the decision. And then if we win, our hope will be that the Trump administration decides not to appeal. And then we can get back in front of the Corps of Engineers to finalize our permit process. And we still have state permitting to do also after that.
So, if everything goes well for you, this Pebble area here, as you point out, could cover 15% of American demand just by itself at this one site. What kind of a time frame would you estimate if everything went really well? And what kind of a time frame if it was slow that this could happen?
Well,
where you still get it through, but you got a lot of other new things that pop up.
So, I mean, if things went well, and we got our permits from the state and federal government, which probably take us a year and a half or so, then there will be litigation. If the courts, are expeditious, and it's getting a little harder for the environmentalists to sue because of some of the Supreme Court decisions that have been made about the permitting process. And then, Congress is looking at permit reform, which is very important for them to get that done. So, a year and a half, 2 years or so for permitting, a year or so to anywhere from a year to 3 or 4 years to get out of the courts, and then 3 or 4 years to build. So that's aggressive. So that's close to a decade.
Yeah.
On the long side of it, I mean, the permitting process could be drawn out, particularly, if it doesn't get done in the Trump administration and the Newsom administration or the AOC administration. you name it, they come in and,
they would shut down altogether. That's right. Yeah, it goes into the snail darter administration.
Yeah.
That's the case. And that's the thing, we look at the proverbial snail darter, that has, we've seen the pendulum swing to an absurd extreme in one direction. We don't necessarily want to go the absurd extreme in the other direction of China. But there is a reasonable area in the middle, I think, where we can live and we can grow. And that's really what I think we're trying to achieve here. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. I had the guy on from Rare Earth USA, and he was saying, even as desperate as the American government is to make this happen, and they're willing to, kick in and do what they can to help the processing of rare earth minerals, they said it's still going to take us more than 5 years once we get started on this thing. And so that's the key thing. We just don't plan and prepare anymore in this country like we used to.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's only been, the mining industry for, probably a decade and a half or more have been telling people this is coming, and people were mostly not listening. Now, at least people are listening. And I always like to say that you can't solve a problem that you've not identified. So we've identified the problem. Now, solving it is not going to be easy, and it is not going to be quick, and it is not going to be cheap.
Yeah, that's the key thing. Well, very interesting to talk to you about this. Again, John Shively is former Alaska Commissioner of Natural Resources. He is the CEO of Pebble, and they're sitting on a massive supply of copper. The question is, will we be allowed to get that out of the ground and process it? Is it a way that they say they've got a way to do it very cleanly? And so, and they got some studies to back that up. You spent, I think you said it here, $150 million on environmental studies. And,
just on environmental studies.
Yeah.
But we spent over $1 billion total, like on engineering and other. So.
Wow. It's pretty amazing. So, well, we'll see what happens with it, and appreciate you trying to get in the fight and actually produce something that is getting increasingly rare. That is the rarest of the rare earth or rare minerals. It's anybody trying to produce anything. Most of the time, it's just people saying, stop, and I just want to keep my lifestyle, but I don't want to have to think about how I got that lifestyle. And I think that is the key issue. We need to understand the trade-offs and understand that there are going to be problems with anything that we do that's real, but those problems can be addressed and can be solved. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.